بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Once again I am here, dear students. I am going to teach you page number 22 as well as page 23 of unit 2. I suddenly became aware of an awkward pause in the room, and turning to look at the Ahads, I discovered that both of them were frowning, a painful look on their faces. Mr. Ahad said apologetically, I am sorry, Mr. Nadeem, you see, our daughter cannot hear anything nor speak. That is why she didn't come to you. I gasped, and muttering something about being sorry, I became confused and didn't know what more to say, for I was feeling ashamed at my forwardness with a child who was obviously not in a position to respond to my approaches of friendship. I vaguely felt I had wronged her and her parents. It didn't take me long to see that was the situation. It didn't take me long to see that this was a situation the poor parents had to put up with almost daily. For every day, one or two guests left and new ones came along, and at the very first meeting or soon afterwards, they would run into the child, be fascinated by her charm and beauty, and want to talk to her, to pet her, and so on. And every time it would result in the child silently smiling, sighing, and withdrawing, leaving looks of agony on the faces of their parents. Often it would lead to lengthy explanations as to how the calamity had come about, for many of the inquisitive visitors liked to know if it was from birth or the result of an accident, whether anyone else in the family suffered from a similar disability, and if any treatment was being given. The queries were answered by the parents haltingly and with obvious anguish. What struck me as the worst part of the situation was that the girl would be often gravely looking on, her eyes aghast with horror and self-pity, aware that she was the topic of discussion. She had no other pastime than to run around the house or play with the servants. She didn't go to school, as there was none there to cater for her needs. They had tried to teach her at home, but without success. She could only hear faintly without feeling much when one shouted close to her ears, and she could speak nothing except utter animal-like cries of happiness and sorrow. Our gestures with her hands which brought a fleeting sensation of torture to her whole being when one failed to follow what she was saying. To save the child from such repeated humiliation, one day I suggested something to the Ahads, which the parents, after some trepidation, agreed to try. We decided to have bits of paper typed and to hand over one of these chits duly sealed in a cover to every new visitor. As soon as he entered the guest house, the text of the chit ran, "Our daughter is deaf and dumb. You may hurt her by trying to be friendly too soon. As she can neither understand nor reply to your kind words, you are requested to please give her time to approach you and make your acquaintance. Thank you." A line to the effect that they might be spared question about her was removed by Mrs. Ahad on the plea that it would not be compatible with the spirit of hospitality. As it was, she felt the note was not a very kind one to be given to people who were going to make her guest house their temporary home, but she gave consent to save the girl untold misery and helplessness she experienced every time a stranger approached her. The ruse worked well, even beyond our expectations, though a few sympathetic questions were still put to the parents. The poor child was spared. Later, the girl herself slowly became intimate with many of the guests. The Ahad felt relieved and thought that at least one of their problem was temporarily solved. But they had a strange visitor one day. It was late in the afternoon and was talking to the landlord, and I was talking to the landlord. It was late in the afternoon, and I was talking to the landlord about some packed lunch that I needed the next day. I was planning a short excursion. I was planning a short excursion by myself to a group of caves nearby. The landlord was in a hurry arranging things for a new guest who had booked a room for the season and was supposed to be moving in any moment, arriving by the mail train. It was late in the afternoon, and I was talking to the landlord about some packed lunch that I needed the next day. I was planning a short excursion by myself to a group of caves nearby. The landlord was in a hurry arranging things for a new guest who had booked a room for the season and was supposed to be moving in any moment, arriving by the mail train. This is enough for today, dear students. Now I am trying to tell you meaning of difficult words. You may try to understand it. I suddenly means achanak, became aware of an awkward pause. Pause means waqfa in the room, and turning to look at the ahads, I discovered, mujhe pata chala, that both of them were frowning. Frown means theory chalana. A painful look on their faces. Mr. Ahad said apologetically, Mazarat khwa andaz mein, I am sorry, Mr. Nadeem, you see your daughter cannot hear anything nor speak. That's why she didn't come to you. I gasped, मैं दम बखुद हुआ, मेरा सांस रुक गया, and muttering और बड़बड़ाते हुए something about being sorry, I became confused and didn't know what more to say, for I was feeling ashamed at my forwardness bebaki badtahzeebi, with a child who was obviously zahiran, obviously clearly not in a position to respond. Respond means रद्द अमल ज़ाहिर करना, जवाब देना to my approaches of friendship. I vaguely मुबहिम अंदाज में felt I had wronged her, उसके साथ बुरा सलूक किया है, and her parents, wronged her, बुरा सलूक करना, बेइंसाफ़ी करना. It didn't take me long to see that this was the situation the poor parents had to put up with almost daily. For every day one or two guests left and new ones came along, and at the very first meeting or soon afterwards they would run into the child, be fascinated by her charms, dilkashi, attraction, beauty, and want to talk to her, to pet her means use tabki dena, and so on. And every time it would result in the child silently smiling, sighing means aahe barna, and withdrawing means to retreat, piche hatna, leaving looks of agony means shadid taklif, great pain, aziyat, on the faces of her parents. Often it would lead to lengthy explanations. Lengthy means long, tawil, explanations, wazahate, as to how the calamity, afat, musibat had come about for many of the inquisitive visitors. Inquisitive visitors means mutajassis, जानने के शायक, जानने के शौकीन, like to know if it was from birth or the result of an accident, whether anyone else in the family suffered from a similar disability, and if any treatment was being given. The queries means sawalat, were answered by the parents haltingly, ruk kar, atak kar, with frequent stops and with obvious anguish. Anguish means extreme anxiety, emotional pain, jazbati taklif, aziyat. What struck me as the worst part of the situation was that the girl would be often gravely looking on. Gravely means very seriously, sanjeedgi se, her eyes aghast with horror and self-pity. Aghast means overcome with shock. Nihayat mayus, sadma zada. Aware that she was the topic of discussion, she had no other pastime, waqt guzarne ka mashghala, than to run around the house or play with the servants. She didn't go to school as there was none there to cater for her needs. Cater means provide, muhayya karna. Cater for means muhayya karna, to provide. They had tried to teach her at home but without success. She could only hear faintly, madham तौर पर, dimly, mubhim se andaz mein, without feeling much, when one shouted close to her ears, and she could speak nothing except utter animal-like cries of happiness and sorrow, or say crudely. Crudely means not accurately, बेढंगे अंदाज में. Such words as mama or uncle. All her other communications, बातचीत, were confined, limited, महदूद, to gestures, ishare, with her hands, which brought a fleeting sensation. Fleeting means गुजरता हुआ sensation, एहसास, of torture to her whole being when one failed to follow what she was saying. To save the child from such repeated humiliation, humiliation means loss of dignity. Humiliation, loss of dignity, sharmsari, ajizi. One day I suggested something to the ahads, which the parents, after some trepidation means apprehension, alarm, andesha, khadsha, khauf, agreed to try. We decided to have bits of paper typed and to hand over one of these chits, duly sealed, duly munasib andaz mein, sealed in a cover, to every new visitor as soon as he entered the guest house. The text on the chit ran, our daughter is deaf and dumb. You may hurt taklif dena by trying to be friendly too soon. As she can neither understand nor reply to your kind words, you are requested to please give her time to approach you and make your acquaintance. Thank you. A line to the effect that they might be spared questions about her was removed by Mrs. Ahad on this plea. On the plea means appeal, darkhast, entreaty, guzarish, darkhast, iltija, that it would not be compatible. Compatible means harmonious, consistent, हमआहंग, मुताबिकत रखने वाला, with the spirit of hospitality, मेहमान नवाजी का जज्बा. As it was, she felt in the note, she felt the note was not a very kind one to be given to people who were going to make her guest house their temporary home, temporary arzi. But she gave consent to save the girl untold misery and helplessness. She gave consent ijazat dena, razi hona, to save the girl untold misery and helplessness she experienced every time a stranger approached her. The ruse worked well, even beyond our expectations. Ruse hikmat amli, expectations, tawakkuat. Though a few sympathetic questions were still put to the parents, the poor child was spared. Later baad mein, the girl herself slowly became intimate with के साथ कुर्ब हासिल करना, के नज़दीक हो जाना, with many of the guests. The ahads felt relieved and thought that at least one of their problem was temporarily solved. Dear students, I explained meaning of difficult words. Now you try to make translation of just these two pages. Thank you, a lot of thanks. But they had a strange visitor one day, strange Ajib. It was late in the afternoon and I was talking to the landlord Maliki Makan, about some packed lunch that I needed. The next day I was planning a short excursion Sair Daura, by myself to a group of caves nearby. The landlord Maliki Makan was in a hurry, jaldi mein tha, arranging things for a new guest who had booked a room for the season and was supposed to be moving in any moment. Move in means आना. Moving in means किसी जगह मुंतकिल होना, किसी जगह रिहाइश इख्तियार करना. आ बसना, any moment, arriving by the mail train. And sure enough, soon a young man came in with the porter. Porter means coolie, carrying his luggage. He was barely 25, clad in ill-fitting, malboos hona, in an ill-fitting tweed suit. Ill-fitting, गैर मुनासिब, tweed suit, ऊनी कपड़े का बना हुआ सूट, with drooping, झुके हुए, drooping means झुके हुए shoulders, and white trouser bottoms. White trouser bottoms means trouser के बड़े बड़े खुले पांचे. Because of the journey, he looked untidy. Untidy means not neat. Muntashir, bikra hua, bigda hua, ganda. His hair, his necktie, his shoes, all unkempt. Unkempt means muntashir, ulje, gande mande, bikre hue, and needing attention, but he had a cheerful face and jet black eyes sparkling with vitality. Vitality, liveliness, zindagi, ruh, tawanai. Mr. Ahad stepped forward and asked Mr. David, I presume faras karna. The young man looked closely. Because of the journey, he looked untidy. Untidy means ill-fitting. Untidy means not neat, disordered. Bikra hua, muntashir. His hair, his necktie, his shoes, all unkempt and needing attention, but he had cheerful face and jet black eyes. He had cheerful face and jet black eyes sparkling with vitality. Vitality means tawanai, liveliness, zindagi, jaan, ruh. Mr. Ahad stepped forward and asked Mr. David, I presume means faras karna. The young man looked closely at his face, smiled and nodded. Nodded means sar hilaya. Room number 18 please, everything is ready. The young man again looked at him, smiled and nodded. He paid the porter kuli, who bowed low. Bow means jhukna. Bowed is second form of bow. Wo jhuka low, for he was not asked to return the change, and disappeared. Ghaib hua. The young man gave me a brief, friendly look and sat before a huge book which the landlord Maliki Makan had pushed before him, making the necessary entries about himself and his intended stay. Intend means irada kiya gaya. Intended, irada kiya gaya. At this time he discovered the sealed envelope. Envelope means lifafa, containing the typed chit, laying on the table. addressed to him by name. He took the cover and tore it open, tore a second form of tear. Pardna. This coincided means coincided, happen at same time, happen at the same time, bayakt waqt zahur pazir hona. With the entry of the landlady into the room, she hurriedly asked her husband if this was the new guest, and having received confirmation, came forward and shook hands with the young man. Did you have a nice journey, Mr. David? She asked with her sweet smiles. The young man smiled and nodded nonchalantly. Nonchalantly means casually, without concern, indifferently, बेनियाजी के साथ, लापरवाही के साथ, as if to say, well, neither very pleasant nor very unpleasant. Would you like to have a hard bath immediately or tea first? The young man pursed his lips. Pursed means pursed his lips, contracted his lips, अपने होंठ सकेड़े. Shrugged his shoulders, अपने कंधे उसने उचकाए. Obviously implying that one would be as good as the other and that he had no preferences. Both the landlord and the landlady were by now slightly disconcerted, uneasy, dismayed, परेशान, उलझे हुए, बेचैन, by what they inferred. Infer means तासुर देना, नतीजा अखज़ करना, मतलब निकालना, to be their guest's pride and arrogance, gurur, takabbur, since he had not even deigned to reply adequately to their polite inquiries. Deen think fit, munasib samajna. Deen think fit, munasib samajna. Adequately, enough, munasib andaz mein, muhabzab andaz mein. Since he had not even deigned to reply adequately to their polite inquiries, the young man meanwhile took out the typed chit and started reading it. As soon as he had gone through it, he looked around astonished. हैरान होना, astonished, हैरान हुआ. The little girl Mahin was at the moment playing in the courtyard. Courtyard means sehen. We could see her sitting near the flowers bed, फूलों के कियारियों के साथ. Flowers bed, फूलों की कियारी. The young man looked at all of us with a smile and darted out towards her. और उसकी तरफ, सीधा उसकी तरफ गया. Now this is a very strange, Mrs. Ahad cried out in protest. How rude he is, rude gustakh. How rude he is. He shouldn't have ignored our request like this, the landlord put in more mildly. I too was a bit upset, pareshan, for it was obvious that our efforts to save Mahin embarrassment, pareshani, istirab from strangers was going to fail in this instance. इस मौके पर. After a few moments, we all walked out to the veranda baramda, and I was apprehensive, darjana, khof kana, andesha, khadsha, of that impending look of anguish, aziyat, taklif, kuft, on the faces of the parents and the child. The scene that confronted us was something we least expected. Confronted means come face to face, amna samna karna. The strange young man was reclining on the grassy ground, reclining on the grassy ground, and Mahin was sitting on his lap. Lap means god. He was showing her the flowers, and suddenly, like the sound of a gun exploding, the shrill, animal-like, shrill means sharp, piercing, and high-pitched in sound, तीखी और बुलंद आवाज़, pierce, चीत करना, shrill, तीखी आवाज़, बारीक तीखी आवाज़, shrill like animal laughter of Mahin. The parents looked at each other with wonder and amazement. हैरानी के साथ, amazement, हैरानी, हैरानगी. Our daughter has not laughed like this for years, Mrs. Ahad said. Curious, we watched the two of them, who were now walking towards us hand in hand. Mahin ran to her mother and danced about her with joy. She made her queer sounds जोश भरे अंदाज में. Queer means अजीब. Queer means strange, अजीब. Queer sounds of mama, mama, and wildly pointed to the young man. Wildly, जोश भरे अंदाज में. It was Mr. David who came to our rescue. Who came to our rescue means rescued us, saved us. हमारी निजात को आया. We soon realized, हमने जल्द हमने महसूस किया, that he was deaf and dumb too. His strange, ambiguous silences. Ambiguous means causing uncertainty. मुबहिम, गैर वाज़ेह. His sudden rush for the girl on reading the notes all became instantly clear to us. It took us time to digest the news. Digest, absorb mentally, process food, समझना, हजम करना, समझना. And then both parents broke into incoherent statements of profuse apologies that they had not noticed it earlier. Profused apologies. Profused बहुत ज़्यादा. Apologies माज़रत. माज़रत ख्वानियाँ. Profused apologies that they had not noticed it earlier, imagining the incoherent statements type of men they were talking to. Imagining the type of men they were talking to, they spoke in half sentences and tried to convey the rest through gestures. Gestures, ishare. But the young man had not the slightest difficulty understanding them. He appeared to read their lips. He gracefully acknowledged, taslim karna, their warmth, garam joshi, and either nodded or shook his hand in reply. For more complicated, he gracefully acknowledged their warmth and either nodded or shook his head in reply. For more complicated, pechida, and lengthy, long, tawil answers, he used pen and paper. The next day, Mrs. Ahad was full of news. She talked as she had never talked before. She mentioned the stranger and the plans for the betterment of Mahin. He had outlined to her and her husband. There were schools for such people, he told them, though they were beyond most people's means. He had himself been educated in one such institution abroad, mulk se bahir, out of the country, and had now returned to Pakistan to render the same useful service to others. By starting a school here, she almost broke down with gratitude, tashakkur, when she said that he had agreed to accept Mahin, his first pupil shagird. He had emphatically, takeed ke saath, stated that the girl could, in course of time, live almost as normal as life as any one of us who had the powers of hearing and speech. By starting a school here, she almost broke down with gratitude when she said that he had agreed to accept Mahin as his first pupil. He had emphatically stated that the girl, takeed ke saath, stated that the girl could, in course of time, live almost as normal a life as any one of us who had the powers of hearing and speech. Mrs. Ahad laughed like a carefree girl. Mrs. Ahad laughed like a carefree girl. She gave us an extra helping of jam and butter makkan, and honey at the table. She looked the happiest woman in the world. Dear students of class 8, I have made easy those words which are difficult to you. Now you will try to make translation of each and every sentence.
اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما.